If I could, I would like to start the program by introducing the head table here tonight, and I'll start on my left, your right, and introduce Mr. and Mrs. Ted Yoshida. If you stand. Next, Consul General and Mrs. Anami. Next, Ambassador Mrs. Andrew Young. My wife, Mary Beth. On my right, I would like to introduce one of our honorees of this evening, Mr. and Mrs. Matano. Next, the gray-headed gentleman and his wife, a man that I made a great governor when I was his floor leader, a man that got much credit for what I did, the Honorable Governor Carl Sanders and his lovely wife, Betty. Next, Mr. and Mrs. Iwasaki, head of Jetro. We're pleased to have you and Mrs. Iwasaki. I mentioned just a few moments ago that we were going to have a good program. But I think one of the things that we're going to have tonight is one of the greatest entertainment programs that we've ever had at one of our banquets. I don't know where Alex Gregory is. Alex, where are you? There you stand up. I want to tell you, he's not the entertainment, but we're indebted. Alex is a very good friend of Lee Greenwood that's here with us tonight. And Alex, we appreciate you indulging on your friendship.
Just the best. In 1996, the largest gathering of nations in history will occur in this city. The most watched event in history, over 3 billion people. At least 100 heads of state coming to Atlanta, Georgia. When the quest began for the Olympic bid, sometimes we'd be hanging out in lobbies of hotels all over the world trying to get a lunch or a breakfast or a dinner with any member of the IOC. And we'd sometimes meet people who would say, "Oh yes, I've heard of Atlantic City." We said, no, not Atlantic City, it's Atlanta. Well, I'm delighted to be able to say that those days are behind us now. Everybody knows Atlanta, GA. God bless this friendship between Japan, Atlanta, the southeastern U.S. It is blessed.
Consul General Anami and Mrs. Anami, Ambassador Yang and Mrs. Yang, Mr. Matano and Mrs. Matano, Governor Sanders and Mrs. Sanders, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. But before I start my speech,
and learn from the differences, and Commissioner, Ambassador, if you come to my house, you'll see some bonsais. You'll see a little puppy that we brought back from Japan that's now a big, wonderful dog. You'll see some of the artwork of Japan, and you'll see an attempt of a fellow from an African-American tradition trying to understand and empathize with some of the subtleties that and some of the quiet and peace that I have learned to appreciate from my Japanese friends, from my days 40 years ago in school when we studied and shot pool together at Hartford Seminary. And looking out at the world today with things falling apart, I must celebrate with you this friendship of people from opposite sides of the world that are not only pulling together, but are doing very well together. And I see a parable of what we've got to do everywhere, that there isn't going to be any way that we're going to be able to export enough to Japan to solve our economic problems. Japan can't export enough to the U.S. to solve their economic problems. But I was down in South Africa last week, and I've been in Eastern Europe, and I've been in what used to be the Soviet Union, and I've been in Latin America and the Caribbean, and almost everywhere, people are crying out for the skills, for the knowledge, for the productive capacity of these two great nations. And maybe as we learn to live and work together here in Georgia, we can set an example for other parts of the world, and we can help as we bring people together in the Olympics, not only in Atlanta in 1996, but in Nagano in 1998, that as 3 billion people from all of the world begin to see what goes on here, that they will see a kind of partnership between nations, a kind of friendship between peoples that really symbolizes what's possible on the face of this earth if we can learn to understand each other, learn from each other, work together to solve the problems of the less fortunate. And I'm confident we're going to do that because we really have no choice. And every time civilization gets to the brink, we usually pull back, pull together, dig down deep, and do what is right. And I think that's what this partnership symbolizes. That's what Mike Mansfield always symbolized. And I'm going to shut up because Lee Greenwood's going to sing about it, and you'll enjoy that a lot much more. God bless you, and thank you very much.
Now we come to what I think is going to be some of the greatest entertainment that we've ever had at these annual banquets. And before I present Lee, I'd just like to say one thing about him. I think really that his 10th album at MCA, This Is My Country, that Lee proved that he's not only a singer's singer, that he's not just comfortable with any style of music, but on top of any style of music, from a classic jazz ballad to energized rhythm and blues love songs to just straight down to heart country music, he's quite comfortable. And so with that, I present at this time Lee Greenwood.
Music transcends a lot of different barriers. Mr. Young was talking about communication and how we get understanding and we can understand more from each other. A lot of my music has been love ballads, and that communicates a certain very deep feeling among all of us because we all need that in our lives. Since I've gotten here this evening, and I have many Japanese friends, we have been so courteously treated by all of them speaking to me in English because I understand very little Japanese. I want to thank you for that because it made me feel very comfortable, and that is a great, it also makes me feel very inadequate to not be able to speak to you and communicate to you through that language barrier that would exist had you not been able to speak English. So with that in mind,